Thilo Kehrer's left. Ben Johnson's close to leaving. Gideon Kodua's just left on loan. Conor Coventry's been sold. Danny Ings is high on the wanted list of 2 Premier League clubs, and West Ham have said he can go. And Maxwel Cornet is apparently quite close to being out the exit door. Now, granted, all of these players are not regular players for West Ham, it has to be said. And I don't know whether to be excited about this or nervous about this. It normally gets to sort of this point in a transfer window. West Ham have not done any business. And I upload a video saying I'm starting to get worried now. However, I am actually starting to get worried about the composition of the bench. Who's going to be on the bloody bench? Because it's not beyond the realms of possibility that Danny Ings, who I don't think is suited to West Ham, don't take this in the wrong way. I'm not saying I want to keep Danny Ings and he's pivotal to what West Ham do. And you could say the same for a lot of these players. But as I say, Johnson's close to going. And if we assume, because obviously Kehrer's gone, if we assume that that's the case, and it's very safe to assume that Danny Ings is for sale. Maxwel Cornet is for sale. Quite possibly Said Benrahma's for sale as well. What is the plan? Who's going to be on the bench? We've got this mass exodus of players going out, but at the same time, there doesn't appear to be anyone coming in. Now, let me just get to the excitement part of it. You can look at this 2 ways. It's cup half empty or cup half full, isn't it? There's a lot, whilst there's worry that we do not have a whole load of players to sit on the bench anymore, and I guess you could suggest, yeah, maybe David Moyes doesn't use many substitutes, but we haven't really seen the bench be totally required until now. Well, we need it now. I think we've just got a little bit lucky, that there is this sort of lull, this winter break, this little lull where we haven't had to use these players. So we are yet to see David Moyes have to put out a team in the Premier League when he doesn't have Jared Bowen, when he doesn't have Mikel Antonio, Kodua and Paquetá, all of those players missing. We've not seen this yet. So I think it's safe to assume, were that to happen, he would be using Benrahma, he would be using Danny Ings, he would be calling on Ben Johnson, he would be calling on Thilo Kehrer. I haven't even mentioned the injuries to centre-backs and Nayef Aguerd being away. Those players who he hasn't been using this season who are on the bench, he would need to use them. It's safe to assume he would need to use a number of those players against Sheffield United. So why should I be excited about that? Well, as I say, I'm not deciding whether I'm excited or concerned. The reason I would be excited about that is I just think there's, in a sense that there's no indicators that we're bringing anyone in, there is no bigger indicator that we're bringing someone in than us clearing the decks. And maybe that is the cup half full version of it. As I'm looking at it, I'm thinking, why would you sanction the sale and the departure of all of those players if you weren't going to bring someone in? And not just one person, we'd need 2. Look, we'll do a transfer roundup later, but I think the speculation surrounding Max Kilman's really, really hotting up. Although when I read that speculation, I'm not getting a sense that we can actually afford him. Sounds more like a wing and a prayer. Sounds like more like hope that we can get Max Kilman, rather than you're reading any report that a bid's going in. All you can do is use the evidence of the past transfer windows. What were you hearing when we were hearing that we were interested in Edson Alvarez, that we were hearing in Mohamed Kudus? I think the stories were a lot more... There's a lot more meat on the bone to them. We were hearing the sort of bid we might be making, that we had the money to do it, that our whatever representatives are out there. There's a certain patter, there's a certain spiel to the transfer stories when you're about to sign somebody. I'm not getting that vibe at the moment, I've got to say. Not with any of these things. But, as I say, if we're going to clear the decks, I think it's safe to assume we are going to put players on there. Think what you want about David Moyes. David Moyes doesn't want to throw this season. David Moyes wants to finish in Europe again. He enjoys it. Look, he likes winning football matches. That much is clear. Whilst we might not all agree with his tactics and whatnot, he likes winning football matches and he likes to boast. He likes to brag. He already brags 3 seasons in a row of Europe at West Ham. He trots that one out all the time. That's that's actually, to say a get out of jail free card would be a cruel thing to say. I don't mean that. He uses it a lot, though, doesn't he? He says this stuff. For David Moyes to say 4 seasons in a row of Europe at West Ham, he wants that. He really, really does. So he's not going to sort of handicap himself. He's going to know that he needs to utilise players from the bench. So all I can do is sort of hope and assume that that's what's happening here. That he's clearing the decks in order to bring new players in. But I'm looking for a glimmer. I'm looking for a little sign. Let's deal with Gideon Kodua just for a second, because he's gone on loan to Wycombe Wanderers. As I mentioned it, I did a video on it the other day. What I probably didn't say was, and you might have heard this in one of the videos I did after I went and watched that Wickham game against the under-21s, I thought he was the one player, if you like, that looked ready to play men's football. As you remember, I've said it a few times, I picked out 4 players to go out on loan. He was one of them. And in many respects, I think, bearing in mind, we're struggling on the wings, aren't we, at West Ham? I think it's fair to say, with the injuries. Then we look at the options. None of them do particularly well, do they? Cornet, Benrahma or Fornals out wide. So the one player I think is probably ready for senior football right now is Kodua. And my point is, if there was one player I was sort of thought, yeah, he will make the bench and he could be useful. He could be a useful sub coming on after 15 minutes. Sorry, not after 15 minutes, that would be bad. With 15 minutes to go, it would be Gideon Kodua. So to see him go out on loan, I understand it. I think it's a good loan. But I think, well, hold on. If the person I think that's most ready to step up and be a substitute at West Ham, not a first-team regular, but a substitute, if he's not going to be here, then what's he going to do? He's not going to go and start picking a load of 17-year-olds and stuff like that, David Moyes. You don't have to assume. I'm hoping and I'm assuming that somebody is going to come in. He wasn't using Conor Coventry, but Conor Coventry there was a buffer zone. The moment he decided to loan Flynn Downs out to Southampton, and by the way, if I was West Ham at the moment, I would be exploring any means possible to try and bring that guy back. So I was saying with Jordan Henderson yesterday, do I want Jordan Henderson? Ideally not. But we've got a really, really big problem in midfield now. We basically have no backup midfielders. None. Not a single solitary one. And there's all this talk about us looking at centre-backs and left-wingers and strikers, and they've all got their merits. They really, really have. But there's nothing, there's no depth. There's no depth at central midfield. Now, you can make the case that if we bring a left-winger in, Paquetá moves to the middle and Souček drops to the bench, which gives us one midfielder on a bench. But it's really, really slight, isn't it? There's not an awful lot going on. There's not a lot of depth. So the one midfielder who possibly, well, it should be Flynn Downs after that. The moment you loan him out, it's Conor Coventry. After that, well, I guess you'd have to promote Lewis Orford. And by the way, he looks like an excellent player. And I do think he's going to play for West Ham. But he is 17. So I'm not entirely sure what the plan is here with West Ham. I really don't know. I'm hoping, maybe it's just a fool's hope on this one. I'm hoping that this is going to indicate some sort of flurry of activity and that we are going to bring people in. But I better get it done really rather quickly because, look, we've got a game against Bristol City coming up. That's okay. But the longer it goes on, and I mean a matter of days, we're going to get to a point where we're discussing it and we're doing videos with the Sheffield United game coming up on the 21st. And we're going to be looking at it thinking, well, hold on, this player's got to be registered in order to play. Not only do we need to sign a player, I think we need to sign a player in the next 4 days.